What up? All right, thanks guys for checking this out. This is a video on vaccines and how they work. All right, so to understand vaccines, we first need to understand something about the human body, specifically the immune system, right? So there's something in the immune system that we use to keep ourselves healthy, and these things are called antibodies, right? All antibodies are, and I'm sure you've heard them on the news and Wikipedia and everything else, but antibodies are a little molecule in our body, a little protein that float around and that bind to something particular. Right? They could bind to a bacteria, they could bind to a virus, they could bind to whatever it is, something that's bad. And these antibodies are created after we've been exposed to something in the past, right? We get exposed to like a sickness or illness or whatever, and then our body makes these antibodies for the future so we can remember what's going on so we don't get sick from that thing again, right? But we don't make antibodies to absolutely any and everything, only the things we've been exposed to, right? So what does an antibody look like? Well, it looks like a Y, actually. It looks just like this, and it seems silly with this piece of paper, but that's actually exactly what it is. It has a little sticky end on the end because it binds, like I said, to that one specific thing, right? So it binds to that one specific thing, and when it binds to that bacteria, it ends up calling in some other blood cells and some other parts of the body to come in, and then if it attaches to a bacteria, like let's say this is our bacteria, right? This little yellow ball. If it attaches to this guy, then this bacteria and this antibody will go to a different cell or different tissue, and the body will eat up the bacteria so the bacteria doesn't get infected, or so it doesn't infect our body. That's what we ultimately want, right? We don't want to be sick. None of us like the flu or having a cold, right? So that's ultimately what we're going for. So how do we get these antibodies? What's the whole point of them? Well, we're talking about vaccines, right? So vaccines, what we're doing is we're actually giving someone the antibodies, potentially, or even more often what we're doing is we're giving someone a portion of something that can create these antibodies. Because it can take up to a couple of weeks for antibodies to really be formed, and sometimes these bacteria move so quickly that it can cause severe illness within a matter of days that we don't want someone to have that exposure and to be that sick, right? So we're trying to stave off some of this infection ahead of time. So by giving someone a vaccine, what we're doing is we're giving them, like I said, a little portion of sometimes a bacteria, sometimes something that's similar to a bacteria, but that can ultimately create these antibodies. So as they're floating around in the bloodstream with a bunch of other things going on, right? We have our red blood cells in there, we have some white blood cells in there. As this is all floating around, the antibodies can look for that specific bacteria or something that it's specialized for, and if it sees it, it will bind to it and get rid of it in the body. That's ultimately what we want. Now we have a bunch of different types of these antibodies, right? We have some of these guys, like a duct tape antibody, we have some of these guys, but like I said, they only bind to specific things, right? So this dude may bind to that yellow ball bacteria like we were talking about, and this guy may end up binding to like this yellow highlighter, but they don't bind to each other, which is pretty awesome. So what we're doing, again, with vaccines, we're literally just giving someone the protection, that protective immunity. We're giving them that ahead of time so that they can be safe and protected against an infection if they get exposed to that in the future. So that's what we're doing with vaccines, and thanks for checking it out. Check out our Facebook page too, facebook.com/simplemedicinekip. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.